I've never had a presentation in English, and I'm so nervous right now, but okay, I'll do my best. I'm not sure if you read my paper already, but let me correct one mistake in my manuscript. On page 204, the name of the law is not correct. The correct name is National Holidays Act 36 of 1994. Sorry. Now back to the presentation. This research explores the prospects for commemoration for apartheid through the case of the Hector Pieterson Memorial and Museum. It's called HPMM, which commemorates the Soweto uprisings of 1976. A unique feature of my research is its focus on the generational shift and commemoration, which has become prominent since the Rose Mass Fall movement in 2015. The students led this movement. It's called Born Free Generation, born after the 1990s. As a side note, I was born in 1992. I'm not South African, but I'm interested in the historical consciousness of this generation because they're the same age as me. In a broader context, this study can provide some elements in the discussion of how to commemorate South African history and how the contents of commemoration may change with generational shifts. I can't describe before this period today, but under the colonial rule and apartheid, the commemoration with a statue or monument was a way to legitimize the position of oppressors at that time. And after the end of apartheid, the new government led the way in memorializing and commemorating the people who had been oppressed and voiceless to restore their dignity. At the time, the government chose to erect new statues and monuments rather than remove existing white people's statues. This is considered as to avoid disrupting national integration. In other words, maybe reconciliation. Many museums also have been built in what has been called a memory boom, which can be seen as a response to the global trends of building so-called memorial museums that address human rights violations in various societies. However, the vision of Rainbow Nation promoting reconciliation gradually crumbled and the social situation changed, especially after the death of Nelson Mandela. In 2008 and 2015, people's anger over lingering social problems, especially unemployment, erupted and was directed at migrants. This can be seen as a turning point in rethinking who South Africans are and what the South African national identity is. And in this context, in 2015, students at the University of Cape Town had a protest to remove a statue of Cecil Rhodes, a symbol of colonialism, on campus to call for the decolonization of higher education institutions. This movement is known as Rose Mass Fall. The students are called Born Frees who did not experience apartheid and can be seen as the rise of a new generation. I think this movement can be described from two aspects. Firstly, because it is a protest against social issues such as educational inequality and poverty originating from apartheid. It can be positioned as a movement in continuing with the protest against apartheid developed by the generation that involved in the struggle. And secondly, however, it's also a movement against the commemorative methods of the previous generation, which had chosen the inclusive way. In addition, as the number of born frees will increase, it is necessary to rethink commemoration with a focus on generational change. The term post, which is included in the title of my paper, has mostly been used in political science to discuss the process of democratization in societies that have experienced conflict. More recently, some human geographers have also attempted to use the concept of post to discuss South African society. They especially focus on the landscape that shows the history of apartheid. Sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce their names, but Huse Hochschutz defines post as the messy situations of societies that have undergone systemic change but remain thoroughly entangled with the past, and suggests that post-apartheid space-time is bringing both disappointment about the present and hope for the future. Drozdowski adds to Jose Hochschultz's discussion, noting that the space-time implied by post-apartheid is optimistic in that people can separate the past from themselves and make positive changes, although it is not easy to change society. And Drozdowski also argues that the preference for the use of post and the acceptance of this optimism is due to the tendency for the word post to certify that the society that experienced the conflict is on the road to recovery and progress by global standards, and it's seen as a good thing. In my paper, I put the word post to the memory boom to rethink and discuss what the commemoration of apartheid is and what we can do to develop it further 20 years after the museums or monuments were built in memory boom. The need to use the term post is also because building the monument or museum and preserving it are two different processes. Making something does not guarantee the permanence of the object itself. For example, the meaning of the monuments or museums can change over time, and sometimes they can be removed or destroyed because of the social context of each era. My research question is, who comes to HPMM and what do they do there every day? And research objective is to illustrate the characteristics of HPMM as a place in the post-memory boom through the experiences that unfold every day at the site. I have used an participant observation, semi-structured interviews using a mobile phone camera, a voice recorder, and field notes. Every day is also a keyword in my research. I use it in two ways. First, I use the word every day to refer to the ordinary day and to analyze experiences on days that are not only special occasions, such as national holidays. Second, I use this word every day to describe the characteristics of a memorial site as a phenomenon resulting from experiences that accumulate or change over time. This is because the characteristics of a place are shaped and changed not only by objects such as monuments, but also by the accumulation and repetition of experiences on site. This is directly related to my research interest in how memory is shaped and articulated through the particular site and historical practices such as storytelling on site. Sorry, it's very short brief of Soweto uprisings. Soweto uprisings took place on 16 June 1976 in Soweto, a township southwest of Johannesburg. On that day, students in Soweto had a demonstration to present a petition to the Department of Bantu Education. The immediate reason for the protest was that the government was forcing Black students to use Afrikaans, the first language of the oppressors, as a medium of instruction. But more broadly, they were opposed to the apartheid system itself. The police came and attacked the unarmed students with tear gas and guns, killing many, including Hector Pieterson, whose photograph by Sam Zima became world famous. The uprising did not end in one day, but spread to the surrounding townships and became a national movement. The Soweto uprisings are now included in the social sciences and history curriculum, and the date of 16th of June has been declared as a national holiday. It's called Youth Day because of its historical significance. It is also known around the world as a symbol of the human rights abuses of the apartheid regime. HPMM opened on 16th of June in 2002 in Orlando West, Soweto. The museum's construction was prompted by a photographic exhibition held there in 1996 to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the uprisings. This led to a proposal for permanent exhibition. It was largely funded by the Department of Environmental Affairs and Tourism and the City of Johannesburg, and designed by Mashabane Rose Associates, which specializes in museum design. The development of this area has also been driven by the fact that it is a former home of two prominent Nobel Peace Prize winners, Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu. There are also some houses of famous politicians, activists, including Def Motupen, Walter Sisulu, and Winnie Mandela. As a result of the research, I have found out that there are about 5 aspects of HPMM. First, as intended by the government, HPMM functions as a tourist attraction. There are many international tourists coming in large buses or vans and are led by tour guides. They listen to the commentary in English in front of the monument with a picture of Hector Peterson and go inside the museum. They usually leave in 20 or 30 minutes and go to the next destination. Antoinette Sithole, Hector Peterson's older sister, also comes to HPMM for storytelling tours. She used to be the official full-time storyteller at HPMM, but is now retired and takes private bookings. Some private guides and storytellers who live in Soweto also come to HPMM every day and wait for visitors to tell them about the story of Soweto uprisings. Many of them belong to the generation born after 1976, even after 1990s. Maybe they are called born frees. And they said they learned the history of Soweto from books, for example. There are also street vendors coming to HPMM every day to sell souvenirs to tourists. Most of them are male and living near HPMM. The interviews with them revealed that their goods are imported from other countries via the market or bought or produced privately, and not necessarily all from South Africa. From the space occupied by these goods, I found the characteristic of this place like this. The animals on the picture may reflect the image of Africa demanded by the tourist market, but Soweto is a residential area and clearly not a place for wild animals. This finding suggests that these products are a representation of an imagined Africa detached from the context of a specific place, Soweto. It could be seen in other tourist sites in South Africa. Besides tourists, many students also come with their teachers. They range in age from primary school to university. In most cases, Tulani Twala, an official museum guide, gives them explanations. He changes language and the way he communicates according to the age of the students. With primary school children, for example, he tries to use their first language, such as Zulu, to make it easier for them to understand. And he asks lots of questions so as not to distract them. Tuala is a person succeeds Antoinette Sitole. He's 38 years old when I interviewed him in 2022. He did not experience the uprisings and he's not from Soweto. However, he grew up hearing adults talk about the struggle against apartheid because his mother had many friends who were activists and she used to invite them to the house. Thus, he became interested in storytelling, and when he visited HPMM, he was impressed by the exhibition and decided to work at HPMM to tell the story of the struggle. He talked to me that he would like to make a museum work more for history education for South African students rather than tourists. On the other hand, during my research, students I met were from outside Soweto. And when I met the history teachers of grade 12, the grade in which students learn about the Soweto uprisings, in 8 heritage schools in Soweto, they said they did not use the museum in 2022 for the history class. And one of the teachers told me that because of the COVID pandemic and complaints from students' parents who did not want to pay for what they already knew, historical consciousness of the parents of current students also needs to be discussed, but not today. And more surprisingly, some of the teachers did not even know that Sithole is alive. HPMM Chief Curator Prince Dube is aware of this situation and working to re-establish interaction with Soweto schools and to start the history education program with Tuala. During my research around HPMM, I happened to come across the EFF political rally. On that day, the area in front of the museum was surrounded by a fence, as this picture shows. The space was eventually occupied by people wearing red t-shirts and waving EFF flags. The space was filled with a frenetic atmosphere of call and response after the speech began. This case shows two things. Firstly, the very act of the opposition party holding a rally in a public space maintained by the government has a political and performative significance. Secondly, the Soweto uprisings still have historical significance and remain an opportunity for people to unite and discuss social issues to improve the society, especially the educational environment, and the HPMM is also the place which provides that opportunity. This is what I observed on 12th of June 2022, the day of the 20th anniversary event of HPMM. It took place at Uncle Tom's Hall next to the museum. Participants were local people, including students coming after their class. The main theme of the event was the promotion of community development in Soweto and the support of today's youth. One memorable moment was when one of the speakers asked the students in the audience to raise their hands if they had been to the museum before. Then only a few hands were raised, and she called on Chief Curator Dube to say that this was a problem. The other striking moment was a young man's comment during a floor discussion. He was not from Soweto, but was interested in the event and was present. He said he could not relate to the history presented in a museum exhibition because it was written by people in privileged positions. Although this issue requires careful discussion, I think his comment suggests that the born-free generation is not monolithic and that there might be inequalities and frictions between them. That is, for example, those who can participate in public discussions about Rosema's fall and express their views may be the elite group among the born-frees, while the rest of the population may still be in the subaltern and the voiceless position. Those two pictures show HPMM on the 16th of June public holiday. It looks quite different from the other day. Please look at the picture on the left. There is a long queue in front of the museum. There were so many visitors that the entrance was restricted. And the picture on the right shows people who have come to lay flowers at the monument. On Newsday, commemorative events took place throughout Soweto from morning to night. During the day, HPMM has a festive atmosphere. For instance, a marching band entertained children with music, and the supporters of the political party PAC gathered at monument to sing and fire blanks to celebrate the day. After gathering at HPMM, they marched to Def Motupen's house. And as the picture shows on the last slide, many local people visited the museum, often accompanied by their parents or children. The museum is open to the public free of charge on 16th of June every year. In addition, outside the museum, people laid flowers, food, and drinks in front of the monument to pray for the victims during the uprisings. In the evening, the museum's 20th anniversary was celebrated again with a dinner at Uncle Tom's Hall. Sitole, her mother, and many others from Soweto uprisings were invited. In the event, Seth Mazibuko, who was the youngest member of the Student Action Committee of SASM that led the protests of the Soweto uprisings, made a speech. He spoke about the need to think about what they can do for today's youth and the problem that today's children in Soweto do not know the history of Soweto, even though it is a place where they are growing up. Interviewed a few months after the event, Chief Curator Dube said it was the first time HPMM had officially interacted with the local community in Soweto. He is in the process of setting up a community development association in Soweto to increase interaction with HPMM. He is also working on revising the museum's current exhibition and adding some new objects to attract local people again. From the results of this research, HPMM and post-memory boom is a place which has 5 aspects. Firstly, as a tourist attraction. Secondly, it is a place for history education. Thirdly, it is a place to discuss social issues, including the educational environment that remained for almost 30 years after the end of apartheid. Fourthly, it's a place where local people commemorate the Soweto uprisings. And finally, it can be seen as a place where the generational shift in commemoration is taking place. In other words, it means that the born-free generation is no longer just receiving history, but making it. However, there are also many young people in Soweto who have little knowledge of their local history, as Seth Mazibuko mentioned in his speech. And in conclusion, Hector Pieterson Memorial and Museum has a potential to inspire and connect people from different generations and positions to weave local history because it deals with the local history in which it is located, Soweto, and people are living in that history right now. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Kana. Okay, so we're going to open the floor for comments and questions. You're more than welcome to raise your hand and then speak, or you can also put something in the chat if you can't speak. So that's perfectly fine. Any questions? Yes, we have a hand.
Hi, I'm Gibo Khalif from the History Workshop and from Wits University. And I have more of a comment than a question, just to say that thinking about this presentation had me thinking about the township experience and what it means to be a youth in the township, to understand the existence of this history, but to not know what to do with it. So sometimes I'm of the view that the youth is aware of it, although yes, there has been this information shows that some people don't know about it, but they do. But you know, the life in the township sometimes, I argue, pushes the youth to not even be immersed in those histories just because of and what I would argue, the anxieties which exist in the township space. So then this has me thinking about then what it means to create, or rather, even though the youth are changing things and are doing things, but to also heighten the township experience in ways which allow us to have an overview or an understanding of our history in ways that allow us to make those changes that the other youth are still the other youth are making, but not just in Soweto, but also in other places. Of course, the Hector Pieterson Museum is very key in implementing some of the changes and imaginations and freedoms that we imagine. But we also have to think about just like the idea of liberation and freedom in our histories beyond Soweto. So how do we then move beyond Soweto, and also understanding that the township space is a lot of anxieties, it's a space of anxiety, and how do we then bridge the gap between those anxieties and histories that we still need to know about? So it's just a comment, but if there's an answer for that, that's also great.
Thank you so much for that. Anyone else have any comments or questions? Stefan, yes.
Yeah, Kana, thanks for a great presentation. I was wondering, as an urban space and public space, if you've noticed anything about management or governance in HPMM in terms of whether that's done through various formal channels like the local state or ward level things, or whether that's done through kind of more creative or negotiated management. But what does that look like, and have there ever been incidents or challenges that have emerged that you either encountered during field work or heard about?
Kana, do you want to respond and then we take another round?
Okay, let me respond to the comments and questions. Thank you for listening and giving me some comments. And the first one, I think I still have to continue my fieldwork in township in my research Soweto. Then yes, I heard a lot of for example, many problems in Soweto because I was staying in my host family's house in Soweto and conducted some interviews with their friends and families during my stay in Johannesburg. And yeah, some of them said they knew they have to think about their local history because everything is coming from the past, but they don't have enough time to think about the past because they have to survive every day and they face many problems such as, example, crimes and poverties and so many problems still remain there. So then, as I mentioned in my presentation, for example, SES Mazibuko already launched an association to help the development of youth in Soweto, not only about history education, but like training to get jobs or education about their health. Something like that. So everything is connected. So how to develop the community is, sorry, that's a problem of my English, but yeah, they are trying to sort out the social issues, of course, including the history education right now. So everything just started last year or this year, these days, I heard. they are trying to do something. Then the next question and comment. Thank you for giving me some questions about the management or operation of the HPMM, which is a public institution operated by the municipality of city of Johannesburg now, I heard. And when I interviewed Prince Dube, who is a chief curator, he said he has a management problem, especially the lack of money to operate the institution. Then, yeah, in the event of the anniversary, one of the speakers told him why the students in Soweto don't come to the museum is the problem of entrance fee. Then she said the museum must not take entrance fee from people living in Soweto, but he answered he's trying to sort that out, but he said, but he also needs the enough money to operate the museum. Yeah, that's a problem. Sorry, I'm not sure if I answered well.
Okay, we have two hands. There is a number, I don't have a name, and then Noor afterwards. So 094000825, you can go, and then Noor will take your question afterwards.
094000825. That's a Sikiba Giba Lakwati. So
Hello,
thank you
Professor.
very
Yes.
much. Thank you so much, and it's good to see you, Kana.
Yes.
I have a comment and a question, and thank you very much for a fascinating presentation. My comment has to do with history not being a compulsory subject at school, which might actually explain why even in Soweto you might come across young people who do not actually learn about the Soweto uprising because maybe in their school history is not being emphasized, because history is one of those subjects that they're considered to be not so important in the kind of current context. I mean, when you hear a former minister of education actually saying that we need science and technology, we shouldn't be really wasting our time with the social sciences, then it tells you that we still have a problem. So I'm saying here that perhaps the fact that the discipline of history is not being taught in the schools is one of the reasons why young people don't know about an incident as significant as the Soweto uprising. Now, getting to the actual question, the Soweto uprising, it's in reality a national students' uprising. It's not an uprising that is just limited to Soweto, as you have pointed out in your presentation. So this is one case where Soweto is basically cashing in on a national incident. I'm wondering, in your observation of the exhibition text inside the museum, to what extent does this museum really speak to this national dimension? The fact that the uprising did not only happen in Soweto, but it happened in various other townships around Johannesburg, but also in Pretoria, as well as in the rural areas as far as Limpopo province. To what extent does this museum actually speak to that issue? Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Prof. Noor, do you want to ask a question, and then Kana, you can reply to both of them?
Yeah, great. Thanks. And thanks very much, Kana, for the very good presentation. And I'm really very pleased to see how this research has developed over the years. My question really follows up from what Sikiba raised. I think that what your paper does really very well is to highlight the multi-layered crisis that our society faces in relation to how we engage with, or perhaps don't engage with, the past, be that at school, in education, in the public domain, in museums and in other forms. And so I think it is really crucial, that you bring these issues to the fore as sharply as you have. My question, is about the awareness that there may be amongst the curators, the managers at the museum, and perhaps beyond that, in the city of Johannesburg's, heritage division, about how the content of the museum should be developed in order to become, or in order to respond to some of the challenges that you raise. My sense is, and perhaps I'm wrong, that very little has been done with the exhibition of the last, 10 or more years. And I wonder whether there's any awareness about the work that needs to be done in the museum to engage a broader set of issues, such as, for example, the issue that Sikiba's raised, that the 76 uprising was not only a Soweto affair, and other matters related to student histories, that it's not only about that particular moment, and there are many other things that could be done. And the second part of my question, which is, whether the educators, the teachers, have any engagement with the museum. We in this sort of argument that you're making, which I think is really important, about the generational dimension, there's almost an implication that young people, current students, pupils at schools, are not aware of and perhaps not interested. But I wonder to what extent the problem may lie, in the schools, maybe with the educators and beyond that, the people in the education department, provincially and nationally. Thank you.
Okay, Kana, do you want to respond? Then we'll take a final round of questions.
Okay, let me answer the questions professors gave me. Okay, the first question about from Professor Sikiba about the exhibition of the museum. Yeah, when I visited the Hector Pieterson Museum, yes, they explained about how the uprising was spread to the other places, townships, and more. How to explain? How to become the national movement. That was explained in the exhibition, I'm sure that. Then, and the question from the Professor Noor, and sorry, let me answer to one question at the moment. Sorry. And about the education, history education in Soweto. And yeah, actually, I visited Soweto 6 or 7 years ago. Then at that time, there was a history class held with the neighboring schools in Soweto. And the kids are reading some famous books written about Soweto uprising and discussing about it with the education staff of the museum. I observed that before, but after that, because of the COVID COVID pandemic, they stopped that class, and after that, nothing. So when I interviewed Chief Curator Prince, he said he would try to restart the history class with neighboring schools in Soweto, and he already tried to contact the schools, maybe 8 heritage schools in Soweto. Then, oh, sorry, now I remember the other question. It's about the curation and exhibition of the museum, maybe. Yeah. At the moment, Chief Curator Dube said he focuses on especially on the object, like such as placards or the top of the bins the students used to used during the protest. That has a strong message to the visitors, and he think that's important. So he's thinking of increasing that kind of objects in the exhibition. But he also said it takes more time to change the exhibition because it needs much money as well and needs a discussion with the municipality. Yeah, he responded like that. Sorry, that's the answer.
That's fine. We understand. Okay. Any other questions? We'll do a final round. Any questions or comments? You can leave them in the chat or ask directly. Lawrence, yes.
Okay, hi everyone. Hi Kana. Thank you for a fantastic presentation. I just wanted to ask one question. You said there's been a change in the way that things are memorialized. I don't know if you could just I did listen to your presentation now and I had a look at your paper. I don't know if you could just speak a little bit more on that. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for your question, Lawrence. Yeah, that's focal points of my research. That's connected to my research interest. How the Bonfrey is trying to change the way of a memorialization. Now I focus on the Rose Must Fall, and in that movement, they try to remove the statue built in the old days. And I think that is a kind of radical way to memorialize by destroying the statues already existed, not choosing the way to just building the new statues who had not been memorialized before, especially before apartheid. So I can explain like that thing at the moment, sorry.
Thanks.
We have a question from Kibohlale. There was a hand raised. If you still have a question. I'm not sure if we've lost you. Kibohlale?
Oh, there is a question from Kasonde.
Yes, so I'll read it out. So he has two questions.
Can you hear me, Sapna?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Sorry, guys, I'm walking, but this engagement is exciting that I absolutely have to participate. And I just wanted to say that your work is very important because it also has me questioning the idea of memory post-COVID and during the time of digitality, where it's very easy to access history, but we take it for granted that there are certain areas and blind spots that we still have to look out for in terms of just understanding our history, particularly as South Africa, particularly as a country that's also in a space of rot, right? So I argue that this country is rotting in some way. And in that regard, what does it mean to think about the past in ways that can help us understand what's happening? And I'm grateful that we do have people that are doing the work, young people in Soweto that are doing the work of historicizing more of these narratives. But it's actually very interesting, just thinking about what it means to understand our history in the present as everyday people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, so I think Kasonda's question does build on that. So there are two questions. He says he's not sure if you have an answer, but just do you have a sense of how social media have affected the way younger people relate to the past? And secondly, he might have missed this, but does HPMM have any connections with local groups who are building community archives or museums?
Okay, thank you, Kasonde. To the first question, the social media. Okay. At the moment, I don't have an answer to this question, but relate to the past. Social media, it's not social media, but I try to ask the chief curator of the museum, why don't you make a website of the museum for not only young people, but everyone to access the information about Soweto uprising, even if they can't go to the museum by themselves. Then at the time, he said he knew that it's important, then it's a good idea to attract more people and make them learn about their history. But that's also because of the lack of money, and it's not allowed by the municipality, he said. That's that. Sorry, then secondary. Yeah, the second question, connections with local groups to build community archives. I don't know, but when I visited the exhibition of the anniversary of Orlando East, that was held at Orlando High School, I met someone who is publishing the local newspaper in Soweto, and he said he has made some records or something like archives of local history, maybe. Yeah, I know only that, but thank you for your question.
Okay, any final questions before we wrap up our seminar? I have another message. I just want to share. Cassandra says thank you. Any other questions or comments? I think this has been really interesting and hopefully has helped you kind of with your research. Anyone else? Okay, if we have no other questions, Kana, is there any closing remarks that you'd like to make before we close out the seminar? Okay, we really Thank you so much for presenting your seminar with us, and we really enjoyed this. Hopefully the questions have been engaging and will help you moving forward. Thank you everyone for attending, and we will see you next week for our in-person seminar at History Workshop. Thank you so much, Kana.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.